so I know and you know.
Yeah, because I saw that it was continue watching instead of just start watching.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, I better tread lightly and make sure I'm not like gonna interrupt her viewing experience.
yeah.
But
Were you planning on watching it too last night?
I watched it this afternoon while I was eating
Oh.
lunch. But no, it was the end credits rolling, so it was all good.
Good. Yes.
It was all good. So, hello and welcome back to the Real Horror Show podcast. We are a horror movie review podcast where we review horror movies from Netflix, Hulu, Shudder, and everywhere in between. I'm your host, Sam Odie.
Hi, Sam.
Message redacted.
No, you're not.
Oh my God. I am. Wait, hang on. And I'm your co-host, Stormy Skies. Sorry, I wasn't looking at it, so I'm so used to you saying, and I'm joined as always by my host.
I just left parts of the script the way you had them.
I know. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, I'm Stormy Skies. Hello, listeners.
Welcome to our podcast. Today, we will be reviewing The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, which is a 2023 American science fiction horror film written and directed by Bomani J. Story in his directorial debut. It stars Laya DeLeon Hayes, Denzel Whitaker, Chad Coleman, Riley Brooke Stith, Keith Shine. Oh, is that Sheen or Sean? Holiday, Amani Summer, and Edem Atsu Swazny. It's adapted from Mary Shelley's Frankestein. The film follows a brilliant teenage girl named Vicaria who resurrects her brother from the dead, only for him to come back a vengeful monster. This is how we like to break down our movie reviews. We begin with characters and acting, then move on to stories and writing, and then finish off with production. And before we end everything, we like to discuss the real horrors this movie addresses. Sometimes they're serious, and sometimes we like to have a little bit of goofy fun. That being said, we are a horror movie podcast, so here is a general trigger warning. We talk about death, blood, guts, and other unsavory topics that might be not be suitable for everyone. Although we do try to discuss these things with sensitivity. Listeners' discretion is advised. Once all is said and done, we rate the movies on a scale of what the fuck did I just watch, which typically means no redeeming qualities to be found. Meh, which is just, it's okay. And then, yeah, that fucked me up, which is what all horror should try to be. So let's get started.
It's been a long time since we had a what the fuck did I just watch, I feel like.
It has been. Good. Yeah, that is a very good thing. And, you know, sometimes what the fuck did I just watch isn't a bad thing. I use Skinamarink as our example of, that was a what the fuck did I just watch? But you know what? Go watch it for yourself and tell us.
That's actually a really great point. So yeah, we're saying, generally speaking, it's no redeeming qualities, but like there's some that can be in that category, but they could be like a deal, like they could be incredible to other people. So
yeah, I would say like Skinamarink to the average horror movie person. I watch horror movies primarily during October. That's definitely a what the fuck did I just watch?
Oh, definitely.
But then you have movies like what we're talking about today, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, which is very art housey, very weird.
Yeah.
But it's still very watchable. It's still very linear. It's still very basic storytelling, especially if you are familiar with the Frankenstein story, which was the creation of the science fiction genre, going back to 10th grade English. Just kidding. That was 12th grade English for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go ahead and get into characters and acting. Vicaria is our main character. She is our Victor Frankenstein, though we never get the name Frankenstein in this movie. I was reading the IMDb trivia page earlier. Her last initial is F, and the teacher does comment that it's very Germanic sounding, so we can kind of gauge that it's
is that what that meant?
Yeah, we can probably gauge that
dumb.
it's probably Frankenstein or
I'm stupid. I was like, what German last name does she have? And I was like, whatever.
so we could probably assess that it's probably Vicaria Frankenstein. And
That's
it's
really funny.
Vicaria, not Vicaria.
Yeah, not Vicaria, like live vicariously. It's I was pronouncing it Vicaria because I always do a long A, like all. Yeah. That's a very pretty name though. But I now know that later in the movie, she is named like someone is named after her, and his name is Victor. And I was like, oh, Victor, like Victor Frankenstein.
Yes.
Woo!
When we get to story, we'll
sorry
touch on that. That's a direct reference to Frankenstein that I'm glad they were able to fit in somehow into the movie, because
and
I
there's
get
the modern Prometheus.
Yes.
Too.
Her textbook has the Modern Prometheus book, which is the often forgotten subtitle of Frankenstein.
Yes, don't forget.
Which I feel like Frankenstein movies in the future should use the title The Modern Prometheus, just because that's a really good title.
It's so cool. For 1818, so cool.
For like, how old was Mary Shelley? Like 17, 18 when she wrote Frankenstein in a single night?
Girl. Wow, go girl. I don't have to look that up, but probably.
Oh, are you not a Frankenstein girly like you are, or a Mary Shelley girly?
No, I'm not. I'm like on the fringes. How old was she when she wrote it?
She was very young. She was very young. So the story of not getting into acting right away, apparently. Let's talk about Frankenstein for a second for those who are unfamiliar. So one night in the 1800s, Mary Shelley was with her husband, Percy Shelley, the famous poet who wrote Ozymandias, my favorite poem.
Cool.
They were staying with a couple of friends who were also writers, artists, as they did back in those days. Like, artists just had their little artist colonies and would do pretentious shit all the time. So jealous.
I know, right? Same. I wish.
Like, apparently Virginia Woolf, even though she was a shut-in a lot of her life, she and her husband were part of this like free sex movement in the early 1900s, and she had a same-sex affair that with a woman that she later based the novel Orlando off of. That's very interesting.
Wow.
But these early century writers, the white people who make up the literary canon, were very horny back in the day.
Yeah, dang, no fucking rules, huh?
Yeah. So Mary Shelley was with her husband, and they're on a couples retreat. And one night they're like, hey, let's have a scary storytelling contest. And they're like, all right. So Mary Shelley comes up with the initial idea of Frankenstein, a story about a mad scientist who brings a man back to life. And she became so obsessed with the story, she went upstairs and continued writing it after the competition had ended. And that later became Mary Shelley's Frankenstein / the Modern Prometheus, and created the science fiction genre, created the science fiction horror genre. And it's very cool. And we all know that Frankenstein isn't the monster. It's Dr. Frankenstein who's the monster.
Yes, absolutely.
And I get why this movie doesn't use the name Frankenstein. They allude to it because Frankenstein is such a, like, if I ever met someone in real life with the last name Frankenstein, I would think they're lying.
Me too. I would think they were like a big nerd.
Which I guess it probably was a surname. It probably is a surname. It's just...
Yeah. It's funny. No, I was looking at the age of Mary Shelley, and Sam, you're gonna have to do some fact checking, because some places say she started it when she was 18, and some say 19. And she finished it 2 years later, so she was either 20 or 21, but that's super fucking young.
Yeah, still super young. And
to write a showstopper.
I'm sure one of those is right, because like back in those days, so many famous people have question marks next to their year of birth. Because
how can we be sure?
For a significant portion of history, you don't really have a birth date to go by. There's no like official birth records. You go by the baptism date.
Oh shit, girl,
which is
you're
going
right.
which is going to have a church record.
Yeah.
Even to this day, I work in an Episcopal church. It's still very archaic. We're probably still using the same system that the Church of England did in the 1400s, where you write down the day the baptism happens in a registrar, and then we keep that registrar forever and ever and ever and ever. The diocese or diocese, yeah, however they said it in The Last Exorcist.
Oh my god, yeah.
Diocese. Diocese. They said
diocese. That's wrong, but okay.
When you get too many and don't have a place to store them, you send them to the diocese, and our diocese has registrars dating back to the 1700s. So,
oh my god.
Just a little history lesson on why we're confused about birth dates for some major historical figures. It's because we didn't really keep track of the day of birth. We kept track of the baptismal date.
Damn. Yeah, because that's the real day of birth, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what they think.
And that's really the main role the church has always played in society, is being the date tracker. Like, they kept the records for marriages, records for burials, records for baptisms. They're record keepers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, fun little bit of history. Now let's get into
sweet
acting.
Yeah.
So I was looking up Laya Hayes, what she's done in the past, because I thought she was very good in this movie.
She was.
And this is really her first adult big leading role. And this might not mean anything to you. It might mean something to you because you do have two young nieces.
Okay.
Her first major role was the voice of Doc McStuffins from 2011 to 2022. And Doc McStuffins, I think it's a Disney preschool show about a little girl who wants to be a doctor like her mom. So she operates on her stuffed animals and makes them feel better. And it's...
Yes. I know Doc McStuffins. I do. Okay. So that's very interesting. Good for her.
I thought that was very funny because you could argue that the reason Vicaria is so into what she's doing is not only because of her mother's death, but is also because her mother was working to become a doctor, which probably instilled a love of medicine into her.
Yeah.
So this is just a very dark version of Doc McStuffins. It's fine.
It is. Yeah, just live action. And she's like grown up now.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny when I read it. And no, I thought she was really good, and that's why I wanted to see what else she's done. But she really, outside of that, has had another role in a like B-grade horror movie called An American Haunting. I think that's what it was called. Southern Haunting. One of the Haunting universes.
Yeah, so many. There's so many.
And then she's in a CBS show with Queen Latifah right now. So she hasn't done a whole lot. I do expect that to change because she was very good in this movie.
Yeah.
She has true scream queen potential, and I'll bring this up again in production, but I swear there was a moment at the end where her mic was a little distorted, and I couldn't tell if that was intentional or if she had blown out her mic with one of her screams towards the end.
Yeah.
Which, is true scream queen shit.
Yes, she was really screaming for real.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Sorry, we're deciding if we go to the soup or bring the soup back to Rebecca's house. We're gonna rank the soups of Panera Bread tonight.
Oh, I love it.
And I think
we should do it at home, right?
I was thinking we should go to Panera because some of the soups have croutons on them, and
they'll be
transporting them might sully the results.
Okay, then definitely go to Panera, I think.
It's like if you're doing a French fry taste test.
Yeah.
You have to go to the fries. You can't bring the fries back.
No, they'll get soggy.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, we'll go to Panera.
Yeah. Other major players in this movie are the little girl Jada, who I liked a lot.
Yeah, she was great.
She was so very
creepy and weird, but funny.
He was.
And she just is. She was great. Okay.
I like her as a creepy kid because
she was so creepy.
She's not like, a creepy, scary kid like we saw in Mother, right? Good night, mommy. I was like, wait. Yeah. she's a little kid, and little kids are creepy sometimes.
Right,
And
that's exactly how it was.
so she's a very realistic, creepy kid who's just like doing a scary monster voice because she knows it's creepy.
Yeah, she's just doing creepy shit, and you're just like, come on.
No, she was so cute.
Go do your alphabet.
Denzel Whitaker as Kango, who's one of the gang members involved with what happened to Vicaria's brother Chris. And then Chris is our other player. He is our creature, our Frankenstein's monster. Yeah. And then her dad is there. Donald. He's good. He
was familiar to me. He looked familiar to me.
I haven't looked him up yet. But he was pretty good. We didn't get as much as him as I would have liked, but we also didn't get as much as the monster as I would have liked.
I know. We'll have to talk about that in the next
and then section. We have Aisha, who's Chris's girlfriend, baby mama. She's about 8 months pregnant with their child.
And is that who that is? I thought that was like her sister or something. I couldn't figure out who it was.
No, that was sister-in-law, ideally, if things had panned out differently. And then we have Jamal, who we would consider the real monster of this movie, because I don't.
Listen, Jamal's making all the wrong choices in this movie. Okay.
Yeah.
He's so big too, so like you gotta watch out for Jamal.
Yeah. Because I wouldn't consider Vicaria a monster the same way we would consider Victor Frankenstein a monster. Her whole philosophy, her whole reasoning behind why she does this is because she's a traumatized child. Mm-hmm. I think her thesis that death is a disease is very interesting, albeit flawed.
Mm-hmm.
But I get where she's coming from like a outside movie perspective, realistic perspective. It feels like every fucking week we're seeing articles of this person lived to 110. Here are their secrets. And I'm like, I don't know.
And it's like smoke cigarettes your whole life. You know what I mean? Like, the fuck?
Yeah. So there is like this thing within society where we do view death as something that could be preventable if we do X, Y, and Z. But that doesn't stop the body from breaking down. And like, I'm 30 and my back already hurts. I don't want to do this for another 70 years.
Wake up and you're just like, I can't wait to rest.
Mm-hmm. And like, we're not thinking clearly. If we live longer, we have to work longer.
That's true. Yes. Like, come on, guys. Seriously.
And it also, like, her argument really works well with like the whole cancer thing that we see her have with the teacher, segueing into Story. Where she's like, cancer is a symptom of death. And I can get behind that, but you can't say a gunshot wound is a symptom of death.
Right.
So
death is a symptom of the gunshot, maybe?
Maybe. I don't know. So I see her thesis. I just think she needs to work on it a little more, but she's she's 17.
She's just in high school, right?
Yeah, she's 17. She's very young. So she has like good ideas, and clearly she's a gifted student in biology. Interrupting her teacher, explaining things to her teacher, which been there, done that.
Wait, been there as in the teacher or the student?
As in the student. I had a history professor like my freshman year of high school. He said with his full chest in his PowerPoint that Catherine of Aragon, Henry's first wife, gave birth to 2 daughters, Mary Tudor Mary First of England and Elizabeth First of England. But everyone who knows anything about history knows that Elizabeth was Anne Boleyn's daughter. Which is what makes her story so like memorable in the history books is, I mean, other than she was one of England's greatest rulers, is that Henry wanted a son. He beheaded Anne Boleyn because she didn't give him a son. She didn't actually sleep with her brother. That was bullshit to get away with the beheading. She didn't give him the son that he was promised. And then her daughter went on to be one of England's greatest rulers. And I just had to correct him because that was fundamentally wrong.
Yeah. Did he get mad and throw you out of class and call security and break your glasses and shit?
No, because I'm white.
Damn, did he like get mad at you though? Did he like say no, you're wrong?
He was definitely annoyed, but like he was wrong. Like I'm not gonna.
Damn, yeah. Shit,
I wasn't the only person in that class to ever correct him on something. One of my acquaintances at the time, we were doing a unit on French history, and he said nice instead of Nice, the city in France, and she was like, "It's Nice."
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's really dumb.
Yeah.
You call yourself a history teacher and you say that, you idiots. Wow,
yeah. Sorry to be crass about the I'm white comment, but I have to be realistic that
yeah, let's be real.
How she was treated wouldn't happen to me because of my skin color, no matter how sassy I was getting with the teacher. And even if I called her a bitch, security would not put me in handcuffs. Like, we just have to be.
No, that was like a lot.
Which, yeah, I'll get into reviews when we talk about production, because there are some like very annoying reviews on Shudder pertaining to this movie.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that when we get to the realistic aspects. So yeah, because Vicaria is correcting her teacher and getting sassy, and the teacher mispronounces her name, she says, "All right, so I guess it's fine if I call you Miss Bitch then."
Why? I don't understand why she like mispronounced her name. It's not like it was the first day of class or something.
No.
You know what I mean? Like
it was just confused. Straight disrespectful.
Yeah.
So security is called. He puts her in handcuffs, and the dad comes and he gets very aggressive with the teacher as well, telling her, "My daughter does her test. She's smart. I support her in everything she does." Which tips his behavior in that meeting, kind of tips Vicaria off that he's using drugs again, because he's very easily agitated, not keeping his cool, probably the way she's used to.
Yeah, I have a note on the drug use later. Yeah, good.
And she brings this up with her friend slash semi-sister-in-law, Aisha. Yeah. And she says, well, your dad is just dealing with the death of Chris like we all are, because her brother Chris recently passed away due to gang violence. I initially thought it was police violence, but it sounds like it was probably gang related. Based on
in the scene, he was shot by gang members.
Okay. Because there's also a scene where he is shot by police officers, so
that's after he's the monster already.
Okay. Yeah.
Which also is not cool, but
yeah, not only was he killed by gang members, it's revealed that his body was snatched, and a few other bodies have been snatched, and everybody in the neighborhood is looking for this person who is snatching bodies, because that's really fucked up. And at one point, Vicaria does more or less admit it to a child, that it's her, but she's like, no, I'm just fucking with you, man.
Right.
And then we get a very cool surgical scene where no, she's not fucking with him. She stole her brother's body. He's very decomposed because it's taking her a little while to
she had to get bodies of other Black people too.
Yeah,
she was saying.
Yeah, she had to find.
She can't kill them. She has to wait.
Yeah, she had to find the right parts to be able to operate on her brother, and we get a very cool scene that I go back and forth on whether or not I enjoyed the cinematography of.
Yeah.
But of her doing the surgery. And this was the moment that the movie started giving me 1980s vibes.
Yeah.
Just with the gore effects, which I really liked in this movie.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They were super gross.
Yeah, they were very, very gross. Oh yeah. They were. And they were like almost I was describing them as like sloppy, but not sloppily done. Sloppy looking, like gross looking.
Yes.
That makes sense. You know what I mean?
No, that makes total sense.
Right?
Like the effects themselves aren't sloppily done, but it is sloppy because it's a 17-year-old girl with no medical experience working on them.
And then like they look soft. Oh, it's just like it looks like that.
Yeah, very 1980s, very 1980s practical effects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where things are just a little squishier.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean, I think. And so that's different from what we've seen late. Like I'm comparing it directly to Saw 10 because that's the last gory movie I've seen, and that stuff's very sharp and angular and dark.
Yeah,
but hers was like 80s, I guess. Yeah.
Well, there's also a very whimsical vibe this movie has
Yeah,
throughout.
there is.
But that's a production note.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
she's
where
not
are
able to
we?
bring Chris back at that moment, but later that night or the next night, she witnesses the young boy she was talking to earlier get shot in the middle of the street. And as paramedics try to bring him back but fail, she realizes what she needs to do to be able to bring Chris back is a shit ton of electricity. So she goes out and gets a shit ton of electricity and brings him back to life.
Yeah, so that was a cool thing because that harkens back to original Frankenstein monster.
Yes.
Shit.
And the electricity scene was another moment that felt very 80s, just the effects on the lightning.
Yeah, it resembled a Tesla coil, but it wasn't a Tesla coil. It was the big towers, you know.
Yeah, very
stuff.
beautiful.
Modern stuff. It was very cool looking.
So he's back, but he wasn't exactly fresh when she brought him back. So
that makes sense. I was like, why does he look so scary and gross?
So he was already in the process of decaying by the time she was finally able to sew him back together. And he no longer has speech abilities. And the only emotion he seems to have left in his brain is anger and vengeance. Rage. So as they're leaving, he breaks the window to a car, and one of the gang members catches them, and he immediately attacks the gang members, which does not go over well.
Yeah, she goes in the car because that is where they're storing drugs, and she goes there on purpose to get that because she's showing him, like she's like, we're gonna go to where I'm gonna show you what's killing our father, and then I'm gonna show you who killed you. And then that's enter scene. What's the dude's name who he like beats up but doesn't kill, but dies later?
Curtis.
Curtis, there we go. I was like, Chris. Curtis had to come by. Big mistake, Curtis.
Yeah. So Curtis doesn't die there, but it catches the attention of Jamal, and Jamal is pissed and wants wants answers from Vicaria, and Vicaria is just like over Jamal's shit because Jamal is killing her father, whether or not it's a
Kango. It's Kango's father.
Whether or not it's direct.
I want to make a side note about Jamal. Jamal carries a machete around out in the open, and I just want to make a note that is illegal no matter where you're at. You just can't have the machete, Jamal, in your hand. But anyway, continue.
Because Vicaria is just done with all the gang shit going on in her neighborhood because it's what got her brother killed. It's what got that little boy killed.
Yeah.
So she doesn't give them the information that they want, and he keeps getting angrier and angrier at her. And at some point, she loses sight of where her brother went. I kind of missed that
leaves. Part. Yeah, he like kind of dips out.
But it turns out he is hiding in the walls of his girlfriend's house and is learning to speak because Jada is learning how to read. So as she's learning to read, he's learning to speak as well.
Yes.
And he's able to get his speech back. And
yes, but wait, in the meantime, let's back up real quick. Because the information that Kango wants to get, Kango is like the head honcho of this gang, and he seems to be like the distributor of drugs, and Jamal's like his like first like person of contact. So they want to know where this big dude who beat up Curtis is, and she won't tell him or give it up. And they're like, okay, well, if you're not gonna tell us, then we're gonna like hurt you or kill or do something. They threatened her, and she doesn't like that. He's like, okay, well, if you don't like that, then you're gonna have to come work for me and help me with my like my drug business. And so she's kind of blackmailed into doing that because she won't give up Chris or where he is. And so now she's kind of forced into this situation where she has to like cut drugs for them, although she doesn't want to. Okay, but then fast forward to Chris living in the walls.
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Chris is living in the walls, and Jada's not afraid of him because she knows it's Chris. he's just a little different now.
He just looks sillier.
Yeah. But I would say the next major scene is the family dinner scene, which I thought was very well done and kind of the heart of the movie, which is she's doing this because she loves her family. She wants to ensure nothing bad will happen to them, probably because of what happened to her mother. Like I said, I don't view her as a mother, as a monster. I view her as a traumatized child who just wants to not lose the people she cares about. And she's lost her mother and she's lost her brother. And shit like that could drive any person insane.
Right. She just wants to find a solution.
Yeah.
It's like what
One
she's
second.
after.
There's a kitten who made her way into the office that I'm gonna kick out.
Yeah, no problem.
2 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead. So she's just trying to find a solution, but we do have everyone getting together, and we have a family dinner because her sister-in-law is interested in just like being together with Vicaria and her father because they haven't seen him around too much because he's been using. And so we finally get everybody together, apart from Chris, all back together again. And everyone is having fun, reminiscing, laughing, telling stories, and remembering Chris. But they are interrupted whenever they have a big knock at the door. And it's the police randomly, and they're investigating, the death of an officer, and they want to come in. But of course, it's like very volatile and aggressive. And so this moment kind of paints a picture of like the reality is always lurking, to always be like worried that like someone might just knock on your door, and you have to be worried about it because of the color of your skin. And so after this, they go, I'm sorry, hello, Sam, you're back.
Hello.
I was just talking until you came back. But
anyway, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, they go back to dinner, and then everyone's having a dinner, and then there's a really nice connection between Vicaria and her father, where she says, I love you, and he says, I love you too, and everything. And I think that's when she like it really solidifies in her that she's doing the right thing, because she knows that she can like cure death right now because she's done it. But then we get the turning point of the action is happening, where everything is not as she thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
All right, your turn, Sam.
Yeah, I don't know if you brought it up, but there is a very important conversation or argument she kind of gets into with Aisha, because she goes into how she's trying to cure death, because death can be avoided in her eyes, and she knows it can because she just did it with Chris, even though no one else knows she did it. But Aisha brings up a point that Vicaria hasn't thought of before, and this whole time I was thinking it too, is she's only thinking about bringing them back to life. She's not thinking about what happens to them after they're brought to life, even after she's seen the state that Chris is in. She hasn't considered what that actually means for them. And I'm not going to comment on the system that Aisha brings up, because I'm on the other side of that system. But it comes down to, you bring him back to life, he's still a Black man. He is still at danger every day of his life because of his skin color.
Right. Does he want to be back?
Yeah. Does he want to be back?
And
to bring someone back against their will is pretty inhumane.
I didn't even think about that part. Yeah.
And especially because Vicaria never thought about like the state that he was in by the time she was able to bring him back, that he's not really going to be Chris anymore. His brain has decomposed, his body's decomposed. He doesn't have language skills anymore. His life is 1,000 times harder, and it didn't have to be, even though he didn't plan on dying. He probably didn't want to die that night.
Right.
But she was very selfish to bring him back. And it's kind of like in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
When they bring her back after season 6, I think. I don't know, whenever the big bring back Buffy thing was, when she was dead for a long time. She says, I think I was in heaven and then I was ripped away. She made the decision that he shouldn't be dead. He didn't make that decision. So now his life is harder. And right after this really nice dinner scene we see how hard his life is going to be as this creature. When the police get to him, they arrest him. He breaks the chains because they call him a monster, and they immediately shoot him. And then he kills the police officer. Another very cool gore effect. Very squishy. And then he tries to go home and be with his family because he does recognize his family, at least.
Right.
And his father sees him as a monster, so he kills his father. And then
I was like, oh shit.
Which I guess, would you consider the father in this telling of Frankenstein to be the little girl that Frankenstein accidentally drowns? Or is that lore unfamiliar to you?
That lore's unfamiliar to me, and then maybe because this was not someone he
was
probably
angry
meant to kill. Yeah.
Like he was starting to find
sense.
feelings other than anger in him, and then his father was disgusted by the sight of him, and that reignited the anger in him. And while this is happening, while the father's being killed, Jamal gets word that Curtis is dead, so he's going to kill Vicaria, or at least find the guy she's hiding that did this to Curtis. And Kango's like, no, man, we got to leave her alone. This isn't right. She has nothing to do with this. And Jamal uses his machete on Kango.
Jamal's like, I have a machete, though.
Vicaria has the most realistic reaction I've seen in any horror movie, which is oh, holy shit.
Scream and run away. I loved that. I feel like I never see a reaction like that.
Because I said the same thing when I saw the machete go into Kurtz's shoulder. I was just like, holy shit.
Oh my God. Can't believe he just did that to Kango. But I really appreciate that she was acting like a person, not like someone in a movie. Like, you fucking scream and run away when something shocking happens and someone's almost getting macheted to death in front of you.
So she gets home and finds her dead father.
Real quick, her house is like all red, like blood red with black doors and stuff. Did you notice that?
I did not notice the black doors.
It's like a haunted house. It's so cool. It's like an old school Gothic mansion on the inside. Anyway, go on.
So she sees her dead father, knows that it was Chris. Kango makes it to her house, is about to kill her, but not Kango. Jamal makes it to her house, is about to kill her, but somehow Kango survived a machete to the fucking shoulder.
He did. He's like, hey, I'm gonna rescue you, man. I'm actually like, I'm like an underdog type character where like I'm a bad guy, but also I like have also morals, so I'm gonna protect you. So I'm like, oh, great, Kango. So he's here to help her out.
So he helps her, and then Chris comes out of the bedroom and he's like, I knew you weren't dead, and tries to machete Chris, but Chris takes the machete and not decapitates him, but like halfway decapitates him. Another cool gore effect.
That was cool. That was a really good one.
So while that's happening, Kango and Vicaria take their chance to kind of escape, close some doors, get away from him, come up with a plan. She realizes that if electricity brought him back into this world, it can take him away. So they come up with a plan to get him to the power plant and electrocute him. So she goes to her lab and gets a bunch of stuff that she needs to be able to do this, while Kango goes to break into the electrical factory. Unfortunately, by the time Vicaria gets back to him, Chris has already strangled him, has already killed him.
He's like dead. But he's manages to get her 2 tools that she asked for. One is in her home and one is elsewhere. But rest in peace. Like, at this point, everybody is like dying. Like, who comes in
we are in the end game slaughter.
Yes.
And she found out that Jada knew where her lab was and was hanging out in the lab.
And she's like, Jada, stop doing that, go home. And she's like, no, I want to stay. So then she's just kind of in there. So now you have to it's like amped up a little bit because you're worried about the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Chris finds Vicaria and she does what she needs to do, kills him, and he says, "I'm a monster. That's my name." And she says, "No, you're Chris." And so he dies knowing who he was. And she tells Jada he was only a monster because other people told him he was.
Yeah. And then we get the next big twist.
We get the next big twist where Jada, burying the lead a little, says, "Hey, our entire family's dead, by the way. Can you bring them back?" And
at that point, I was like, "Oh shit, everybody is dead."
Yeah. So Chris had gone to his girlfriend's house, because that's where he had been hiding, but no one believed it was Chris. So he once again got angry. That's the only feeling he really has.
Yeah.
And he killed them all. So Vicaria is understandably upset, but Jada isn't, because she knows Vicaria can bring them back, just like she brought Chris back. And she's like, "No, it won't work. We just saw that it won't work." But Jada just says, "But they were just here."
Yeah.
Which clicks in Vicaria's mind. Oh, they're still fresh.
That was a cool moment.
Maybe they won't be in the same state that he was. And what I think is the first person she brings back, because she was pregnant, she brings back Aisha.
Yes.
And Aisha, when she comes back, is upset, confused, terrified. And she's the one that says, he's alive, referring to her baby.
Yes.
Because she is very pregnant.
Very pregnant.
And calls the baby Victor, because Chris wanted to name the baby after his sister Vicaria.
Wow, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
But then we get the Victor, and I was like, "Oh, like Victor Frankestein." So that was cool.
And so that was a nice way to throw in the famous "he's alive" moment.
Oh shit! That went right over my head.
Yeah. No, direct reference to "It's alive."
I'm so dumb.
It's fine. You're almost a doctor.
It was a very emotional moment, because she was alive, and then she's like, "Where's the rest of our family?" She said, "They're gonna be here soon." I was like, "Yay!" She can get everybody was just like one other person, I think, and then maybe the other kid, the little boy.
Yeah.
If he was there, I don't know.
Something I kind of glossed over was Kango finding out that she was doing these experiments on dead bodies. That went not super over my head, but until after I finished watching the movie and I was getting ready to record and remembering things I learned in African American literature in college, and just listening to Black voices online, is historically it was not uncommon for gross scientific experiments to be done on Black bodies, because for centuries, even today, they were viewed as less human. One of the most famous examples of a Black family being screwed over by the American Medical Association, even though I don't think they experimented on her, is Henrietta Lacks, whose blood or cells have been used to create so many life-changing medicines, and her family has seen nothing come of that for them financially. And it's their grandmothers, their great-grandmothers' cells that are saving lives every single day. So I thought that was a good nod to have in this movie, because there is a lot of generational trauma associated in Black communities with the medical field, because for so long they were used as...
Well, you know about the Tuskegee experiment, right?
Yes. Oh, that's another good one. That's another good one.
Yeah, that was the where it was just like Black men in Alabama had there was no cure for syphilis. So doctors were just literally trying anything on these people to try to see if they can cure it, and then and of course what happens when you just test stuff, people will die, or people get sick, whatever. So it's it's just literal scientific experimentation just for the sake of that. And so that's a big one.
So there's a lot of realistic horror aspects that
can
went
go,
into this movie.
Real horror show column,
Yeah. So moving into production, this movie was very whimsical and very weird in a lot of ways. Almost, I kept thinking fairy tale like, which I guess maybe makes sense. It's been a decade since I've read Frankenstein. But it is a very whimsical idea of a novel. There's no magic. It's all about science, but science is magic in a way, if you will.
Yes, absolutely.
It's using shit around us to make new shit, which is very magic oriented. I'm sure I'm going to drive the scientists in my life crazy by saying that, but a lot of stuff that is conveyed as witchcraft was just science. It did occur to me, we can probably finally watch Castlevania now that the strike is over.
Okay, that'll go on the list, Sam. We have to watch Usher first, but anyway, yes.
Yes. But this happens in the first 15 minutes of the first episode, so it's not really a spoiler. But Dracula's human wife, Lisa, is burned at the stake because she's a scientist doing science experiments, and because the villagers don't understand science, they convey that they construe that as witchcraft and burn her at the stake, and then that's what sets off the course of events in Castlevania.
The fucking villagers every time. Cool.
So it's, I get why they would go whimsical with the cinematography. This movie's cinematographer was Daphne Quinn Wu, and she did a phenomenal job. I thought the color grading in this movie was very pretty, very it's very 80s. Like, you've pointed out the red to me, and now I'm thinking about it. The Aisha's house was blue, so there's a lot of big bold colors in this that feel very reminiscent of 1980s horror movies.
Everything was pretty bright too.
And I couldn't find anything when I was doing IMDb, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bomani was a huge 1980s, we're all 1980s horror movie fans, so that's the prime decade of horror, so I wouldn't be surprised if he and the cinematographer kind of wanted to take that route with this. But it was very beautiful. I liked the soundtrack a lot. I thought it was haunting and very pretty. What else was there?
Let's see.
We talked about the gore, which the gore was really well done. I'm glad we're getting back into practical effects with gore, with Saw 10. I think a lot of that was practical. It's always been practical with the Saw franchise. And then with this, it's a great comparison when you're talking about gore, how you can do practical effects and get two completely different vibes from them.
Absolutely.
It was squishy, but body parts are probably squishy.
His hand too. It was just so gross.
He felt like a decay. He felt like a corpse. They did a very good job with the makeup.
Yes, and you know what? I do want to say that out of all the other Frankenstein adaptations I've seen of Frankenstein, he's more of a man than anything else. But this one is actually no, he's literally put back together, and we're just going off of steam here, and that's it.
No,
I'm amazing.
That is an excellent point, because our vision of Frankenstein still comes from the 1930s movie, which is just a man.
It's just a man with
some stitches in his head.
Right. Yes.
But Chris felt like he was pieced together by a child.
Face. Yes. And also it was she was having difficulty sewing his face on his own, other pieces on his face, because the skin is probably just falling apart. And we do get that great moment whenever she's with guy the one that got macheted in the shoulder, and they're in the room hiding from Chris, but then like the door opens and we see his face, and I think it's like only close up we get of his face clearly, and it's like really, really well done, because it looks like a person whose like skin was like burnt off and then put back on, and it's so gross looking. So I think they did a really great job, because I've never seen a Frankenstein monster look like that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think back to, we haven't had a lot of Frankenstein media in the last decade. Like, that's why I was so excited about this, is because we don't get a whole lot of Frankenstein. I feel like people think he's a little boring. No, but we are getting, like, this is the first, we're getting a second like Frankenstein retelling with the
really,
with the Emma Stone movie coming out. That
with the girl.
But that's another example of a Frankenstein looking more human than corpse. But the last time I remember an actual corpsey Frankenstein is in Van Helsing, because his head keeps falling apart.
Van Helsing, I love Van Helsing. I remember like with the Frankenstein in Van Helsing.
Yeah, he was very corpsey, and it was like a running gag kind of that his face kept falling off.
Because and he was like all pale white, and he had like the foot where he walked and like steam would come out of his one foot. That he was really cool. He looked like he reminded me of like man plus machine parts, but his head would like come apart and he would like push it back together. That was interesting.
So I'm really glad that they went realistic with it, because if you're working on a body that's even like 2 weeks old, it's going to be squishy, it's going to be falling apart, it's going to be decayed.
For real. Thank you. Yes.
So I am very happy that they took that route with it, and they didn't shy away from how gross of a concept this is that Vicaria is working with. Like, you know, by the end of the movie, when she's bringing back the rest of her family, they are fresh. They're not going to be gross yet, but her brother is very like in a state of grossness.
She just had him in like her lab, which is just room temperature, you know, or warm, because it looked like it was summer or warm weather.
So, pro tip, if you're planning on following in her footsteps, maybe get an ice cream truck. To keep the body a little fresher.
Big freezer.
Find an abandoned restaurant with a functional
a walk-in.
Functional walk-in. But those were the big notes I had. And then the note of, it sounded like at the end that her mic had blown out with one of her screams.
Maybe,
I couldn't tell if like it was intentional, but I did hear some distortion on her mic.
Okay.
It's not the biggest deal in the world if she blew it out and they didn't have the time or budget to replace the mic. Who cares? That's a testament to how good her scream queen acting is.
I know. But there is some stuff that I wanted more of in the movie.
I wanted more Chris for sure.
More Chris. He was like out of the movie for like the majority of the middle. And then it kind of got a little lost with the story there. But I wanted more of like the body snatcher angle. Because I feel like no one made that big of a deal out of it. But it sounded like a big crazy deal because someone's stealing people's bodies and shit.
I agree. That should have been a bigger plot point.
Like, don't go outside alone because there's a body snatcher out there, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Especially with how Bomani really was kind of focusing on the community aspect in this movie. What better way to like amp up the climax of your movie than the community finding out that the body snatcher
is just a girl.
is their gifted, beautiful Vicaria, like
for real.
And then finding out what she's doing to the bodies, that could really amp up the tension at the midpoint.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, it needed a little more time with Chris, because going back to the 1930s Frankenstein, because that's still the epitome of the Frankenstein media. We spent a lot of time with the monster, humanizing him, because Frankenstein is a tragedy. The monster is a victim.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the most famous scene from that movie that got the townsfolk thinking he was a monster, or to believe he was a monster, is he's sitting by a lake with a little girl, like she's 5 years old or something, not too much younger than Jada. And they're sitting by the lake, and she's showing him how to throw flowers into the water, and they're having a wonderful time. And he too has the mind of a child, and he thinks that if he throws her into the water, she'll also float. But she doesn't, and she drowns. And the next scene is her father carrying her dead body back to the town.
Damn.
So I was kind of thinking they would go that way with Jada, because Jada had that bond with Chris immediately when he came back.
Oh, yeah, that would have been interesting. Nod to the original.
I think just a little bit more time with Chris as our tragic figure would have helped the movie a lot.
Yeah, it would have been cool if there was like stuff with Chris before he died too. Just so I like can get to know him a little bit.
Yeah. Because he's the tragic figure, and I understand I don't see a budget sticking out to me on IMDb, but I understand if it was budgetary reason why we couldn't spend that much time with Chris, because they were very careful not to like show a whole lot of his face. Because that kind of makeup is very expensive. And this did feel like it was on the lower budget in the horror industry, which that's not shade. You can do amazing things with low budget. We like fucking Saw, we were just talking about in the mini show.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like those two things probably would have rounded out the story a little better.
Also, I want to know about her lab, because like once we meet her, the lab already exists. I want her to like, I want to know like when the lab became a thing. Was it before Chris died, or was it after Chris died that she was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna bring him back to life, and I have to build a lab now to do that, and getting parts and all these things, and you know, doing more research and this and that, and more time with Vicaria, I think. You know, we have time with her, but I don't think we have time to get to know her. Like more exposition, I mean. I love stuff like that in movies, when they're building the lab and like getting inspired because there's this one moment that motivates them, but for us it's like already done, so we kind of miss out on that moment.
So I just think like those little things would have rounded out the story a little better.
Just 30 more minutes.
Because this movie wasn't long at all. You could have easily tacked on another 30 minutes of exposition.
It was only 90 minutes, which is pretty good.
But yeah, so realistic aspects, we've touched on not feeling safe around the police is a big one. Especially this movie began filming, I believe, in 2020, or let me see, I just saw when it started filming. So he started developing this script in 2018. And then it caught the interest of Crypt TV in 2020. So they probably started filming in 2021 before it was announced. So this movie would have been filming right after the biggest Black Lives Matter marches that happened in 2020. So yes, this movie is quote unquote woke. That is the word that keeps popping up in like 1-star reviews that I was seeing on both Shudder and IMDb, is that this movie's not original. You've seen it before. It just has a woke twist to it. And the reason we have this segment of realistic aspects in horror movies is horror is supposed to draw on real life fears. It is supposed to make you uncomfortable. It's supposed to make you scared. It's supposed to make you grossed out. And unfortunately, police and gun violence and all of that shit is a very real fear in Black communities. And those stories are just as important to be told, even if it makes people uncomfortable who are on the other side of the system.
Right, exactly. I mean, this is what movies are meant to do, and that's the purpose of them anyway.
And like, it really wasn't that woke. There wasn't like a moment where
Not overwhelmingly so, yeah.
There wasn't a moment where Vicaria looks straight in the camera and says, Black Lives Matter, fuck Trump.
Yeah.
No, it was just, I think it showcased real fear that happens in Black communities, especially with police officers banging on your door in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I do want to say that, like, I think maybe the most realistic moment, I want to say maybe the most realistic moment would be like them at dinner and then it being interrupted with that, you know, and so just that constant anxiety, you know, I think is the realistic part. Maybe not that exact scene, but you know.
I know, and fucking police officers just do that shit all the time. I remember in our old apartment, it was like 2 a.m. and we were fast asleep and a police officer came banging on our door because someone heard screaming and called the cops, and we were like, no. And we're nervous because it's 2 a.m. and you just scared the shit out of us.
I know, like, you fucking scared me and I'm scared now.
Yeah. So yeah, this movie is just another example of how horror movies are rooted in our everyday fears in life, and it's stupid to give it low ratings just because you deem it woke, because it's addressing fears that you personally don't have.
Well, there's other fears too, and it's not just the police, like, it's also like the gang violence, and also like knowing that there's drugs in your community, but what can you fucking do about it? You can't do anything about it because you can get hurt. So like, you just have to just stand by sometimes. And so that's also scary. So it's like all these things stacked up on each other.
Yeah, it's a lack of control in your life, which is another argument you can make for Vicaria. She lost her mom, she lost her brother, she doesn't really have control in her life. So
yeah, she's waking up and she's like, okay, who's next? You know, and it's a kid, and she's like, okay, who fucking next? I'm gonna stop it because no one else can do anything. I'm gonna do something the best I know how.
Yeah.
And it's this, and it's science, you know.
Yeah, if she's able to bring people back to life, then she doesn't have to worry about her dad dying of a drug overdose because she can just bring him back.
Oh, I have a note about the dad, and I'm no like scholar on, you know, like drug addiction and stuff, but he really didn't seem like he was like a junkie at all. Like rarely, except for like him being angry at the student teacher conference. He seemed like pretty fine. So maybe we didn't get enough like interaction with him because I needed to see more of like the effects of him other than sleeping all day.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
he should have been a little more agitated at dinner, maybe even.
Yeah,
but no, at dinner he just seemed like your regular concerned father.
Fine. He just seemed normal to me. It didn't seem like he was really on drugs. And like, and also I just want to say that like, you can't just like pick up heroin because like, well, you can pick up heroin because like you're feeling down, but like you can't just like put it down for a day and be like, well, today I'm gonna like chill it for a second. Like, I don't think it works that way. So we're gonna
where you are with your addiction.
I
think it might depend on where you are with your addiction. But if he's a former addict, I don't know if doing it once he'd be able to stop.
We don't know. Yeah, and we don't know if he's a former addict or not. So we don't know. Did it say that he did it before and stopped and then did it again? I don't know.
I think so. I think she said he's using again.
Oh, all right. Well then, dang, yeah. That sucks, and that's a big disappointment too because you have no control, and that's your parent, you know. So, but I thought that he should look more fucked up a little bit. That's just my nitpicky note. But he wasn't in it all that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, other real horror shows things. So other realistic aspects would be dude carrying around a machete all the time. That's pretty scary.
Yeah. I guess being alive without your consent.
Oh yeah.
I jokingly say all the time I didn't consent to being born and now I have to pay these bills.
I say that a lot myself.
There's a lot of truth to that.
I did not ask to be born, yet here I am, and now I get to deal with it.
I am glad.
We're doing all right.
I'm glad millennials are breaking these generational traumas and realizing, you know what, we didn't ask to be born, so maybe I won't kick my child out of the house at 18 and expect them to be fully functioning adults.
Right. Yeah. Or maybe we'll cool it on having babies for right now.
Yeah. So
either way, yeah, exactly. I say that a lot. I'm glad somebody else does too.
Yeah.
I thought that I was like just being an insane person. But I'm just like, I didn't ask to be born. What do you want me to do? Those are all the major realistic aspects, I think.
That's all I have.
How about bringing someone back to life and then like
abandoning them,
having to kill them again because they're just killing everybody, and it's kind of
when your school project doesn't go the way you want it to.
Right. Yes. It just does not turn out the way that you had it pictured, you had it planned, you did all this research, and yet life prevails. Mm-hmm. And it's not what you thought.
Yeah.
So you have to undo what you did.
Yeah.
So that sucks.
But that is all I have right now. Okay. I would give this an that fucked me up, even though there are like some finer details I think they could have done a little better story-wise. Yeah.
This was a good monster movie though, it fucked me up.
It was a good monster movie. I'm glad that 2023 is the year we're getting not one, but two Frankestein retellings that aren't just a man coming back to life. It's got social commentary.
It does. It has Black people, which is like refreshing. I feel like I just watch horror movies and there's like not a Black person to be.
No, that's true.
It's like insane.
We owe a lot to Jordan Peele for kind of bringing Black horror to the mainstream. I know we had like Candyman, but that wasn't even really Black horror. That was a Black slasher, but everyone else was very white. But I know for a long time a lot of Black horror was more in the horror comedy genre. So we are entering a much more inclusive horror space, and that's fine. It's what we want. It's what should happen. It should have happened before 2023, but
because like all this time it makes people think that like Black people aren't interested in horror, but that's just not true.
And this is this is something I think about. Our masters are in publishing, and you hear it a lot in publishing is, oh, well, Black teens just aren't into reading. And it's like, well, are they not into reading, or are they not into reading
just white people
books about white people constantly? So it's the answer is obvious. They're not interested because you're not creating art.
You're not creating the content
art that connects to them. You're not making an effort. So I thought this was a very well done movie, and I'm glad it exists, and you should check it out.
Hey, speaking of Frankenstein stuff, have you ever seen the show Penny Dreadful?
I have not. I need to.
That is my all-time favorite retelling of a Frankenstein story. And so maybe we should watch that.
Just Sam. Add it to the list. Add it to the list when we get to it.
Okay. Anyway, Sam, it's great.
But I guess we should probably do the end notes.
All right. Well, that fucked me up. If you're interested in watching, this film can be found on Shudder. So, dude, if you don't have a Shudder, get it, because that's kick-ass.
Yeah, it's like $5 a month, so very doable.
Yep. Let me know when my next big $5 is due to you, Sam, to support her. Did I pay? I think we have that all figured out. Do we pay for the year?
I would just do month to month.
Did I give you money?
Not yet, but no rush.
When is my money due? How much money? I swear I thought
I don't know. It's like if we're splitting it, it's $250 a month. So just like, I don't know, do that however you want.
You mean $2.50? Oh yeah, $2.50.
Yeah.
Times 12.
Yeah.
Is what?
I don't know. It's 5:30. I gotta get going soon.
Okay. I'm sorry. All right, it's on Shudder. But anyway, thanks for tuning into our episode. We are the Real Horror Show podcast. Our host is
$30 a month, or not $30 a month.
Okay,
$30 a year.
I'm gonna pay you in 1 minute. Okay. Our host is Sam Odie, and I'm the co-host from Skies. I'm gonna pay her because I owe money. Don't owe money. That's the Real Horror Show. The podcast was created by Sam Odie and Stormy Skies, and is directed, edited, and produced by Sam Odie. You can find Sam on Instagram at Sam is Writing Stuff. And that's new.
Yeah.
Not, oh, hi, I'm Sam.
Yeah.
Well, cool, sweet. And Sam is Writing Stuff. She always is. And you can find Stormy on Instagram at The Stormy Skies. You can find the Real Horror Show podcast on Spotify, TuneIn, iTunes, Google Play Store, Pandora, and anywhere you like to stream your podcasts. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you're always in the know when a new episode comes out. And follow us on social media. You can find the Real Horror Show podcast on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Facebook, and yes, Twitter/X too. And we do more than just podcasts. We love to write, as I mentioned before, and have plenty of great movie reviews and essays, all of which can be found on our website, realhorrorshow.com. We love hearing from our listeners. You can ask us a question or send us a movie request to review by DMing us on social media, or you can even send us an email at realhorrorshowpodcast@gmail.com. Call for guests. Do you love horror movies? Are you a podcaster, a content creator, a movie lover, or anyone in between who is a listener to our show? We would love to have you as a guest on one of our episodes. Reach out to us via social media DM or email us at realhorrorshowpodcast@gmail.com. Our podcast episodes featuring guests, they're all listed on our website, realhorrorshow.com. And we are so thankful for all of our listeners. You are the life force of our podcast, and we wouldn't really exist without you. Thank you all for making this podcast real and supporting us as we record every week, or try to. You can support us in different ways, such as liking and sharing our podcast episodes on social media. Giving us a review will help the podcast more than you know, and will help other listeners find the podcast too. You can also donate to Real Horror Show by visiting our support page on our website, where you can make a one-time donation via PayPal, buy us a coffee with the Buy Us a Coffee button, or explore our very interesting Amazon wish list. Yes, I see that we still have this blurb here about how we stand behind SAG-AFTRA as they strike, but guess what?
It's over.
The strike is over, so I guess I can remove this. Yeah, cool. Well, any other pertinent news?
Not right now. We will be gone for a week for Thanksgiving, and then we will be back with more Death Note and a Saw retrospective.
Oh, shit. Just in time for the holidays. Yeah. I love it. Okay, fabulous. So I can't wait to go downstairs later tonight and just keep watching Death Note, because, like, I must confess that I can't wait to see what happens next after I finish an episode, because I am in love with light. So, okay, if you are too, don't at me. Okay. Our outro song is called Creep It Out by Jonathan Colton, and he can be found at jonathancolton.com. Thank you, fuck off, and have a swell evening, and have a good holiday and break. This is Real Horror Show signing off.
Bye.